Have you ever wondered why the universe seems to work backwards? Why the things you desperately want, the relationship, the money, the breakthrough, keep dancing just beyond your reach, while the things you stopped caring about suddenly appear in your life as if by magic? What if I told you this isn't random chaos, but rather the most precise mechanism in existence pointing you towards something extraordinary? There's a moment, a singular point in time and space where everything changes, where infinite possibilities that exist in the quantum field suddenly collapse into one definitive reality. Scientists call it wave function collapse. Mystics call it the moment of creation. But most people go their entire lives without ever learning how to access it deliberately. How to stand at that exact threshold and choose which possibility becomes real. Think about the last time you wanted something so intensely it consumed your every thought. You visualized it, affirmed it, chased it with everything you had. And yet, the harder you pushed, the further it seemed to drift away. Has this ever happened to you? Of course it has. We've all been there, trapped in this cruel paradox where desire itself becomes the barrier to having what we desire. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. But here's what nobody tells you. Right now, and as you're reading this, there are infinite versions of reality existing simultaneously. Quantum physics has proven this beyond doubt. In one reality, you already have what you want. In another, you're still searching. In yet another, you've given up entirely. These aren't fantasies or metaphors. These are actual realities running parallel to the one you're currently experiencing, separated by nothing more than frequency, by vibration, by the specific energetic signature you're broadcasting into the field. The collapse point is the exact moment where all these parallel realities converge, where the quantum field of infinite potentials selects which version materializes into your physical experience. And here's the unsettling truth that most people never grasp. You're creating this collapse every single second of your existence. Whether you realize it or not, your thoughts, your emotions, your deepest assumptions about what's possible, they're not passive observations. They're active forces literally collapsing waves of probability into particles of reality. But there's something most people are doing that prevents them from ever accessing this point deliberately. Something so subtle, so ingrained in how we've been taught to pursue our desires, that it becomes invisible. It's not about working harder or wanting more intensely. In fact, it's precisely the opposite. Stay with me until the end because what you're about to discover might completely shatter everything you thought you knew about how reality works. The two realities you're experiencing right now, the one you see with your eyes and the one forming in dimensions you can't perceive, are separated by a doorway. And at the threshold of that doorway exists a state of being that changes everything. Most people don't realize they're trapped in a transmission loop. Every single moment, you're broadcasting a signal into the quantum field, and reality, like a perfect mirror, reflects that signal back to you with ruthless precision. Here's where the journey gets uncomfortable. When you desperately want something, when you're consumed by the thought of not having it yet, you're not broadcasting desire for the thing itself. You're broadcasting the frequency of absence, of lack, of the gaping void where that thing should be. And reality, in its perfect mathematical elegance, it gives you exactly what you're asking for. More absence, more waiting, more of that hollow feeling that something's missing. This is the hidden truth behind why desperation repels and detachment attracts. It's not some mystical punishment for wanting things. It's pure physics. Your emotional state is the antenna, and whatever frequency you're transmitting is the reality that gets selected from the infinite field of possibilities. The collapse point cannot occur when you're stuck in this loop. Think about it. If you're broadcasting, "I don't have this," reality has no choice but to keep delivering experiences that match that frequency. You're literally preventing the wave function from collapsing into the reality where you already possess what you desire. The quantum field is responding to you, but not in the way you think. It's not listening to your words or your visualizations. It's reading the deepest electromagnetic signature of your being, the one you can't fake or manipulate with surface-level techniques. If you're someone who wants to go deeper into these hidden truths about reality and consciousness, hit that subscribe button. This channel exists for people who aren't satisfied with surface-level answers, people who are ready to see what most others miss. Now, I want to go even deeper into this because understanding the transmission is only half of the revelation. There's a state that exists between wanting and having, a threshold that most people never discover because they're too busy oscillating between desperate pursuit and frustrated resignation. This isn't about pretending you already have what you want. Yeah, that's just another form of lying to yourself, and the quantum field sees right through it. This is about something far more profound. It's about accessing a version of yourself that exists right now, in this very moment, in a parallel track of reality, who already possesses what you desire. That version isn't hypothetical. It's not a fantasy you create in your mind. It's an actual you, living an actual life, experiencing an actual reality, where the thing you want has already materialized. Every decision you've ever made exists as a frequency, a specific vibration that tunes you into one station of infinite stations, broadcasting simultaneously. The version of you reading this right now is tuned into one specific channel, but the version who has the relationship, the money, the freedom, that version is broadcasting on a different frequency, living in a reality just as real as this one, separated from you by nothing more than a shift in vibration. The collapse point is the exact moment you change stations, not by forcing, not by pretending, but by making a fundamental transformation in your internal frequency. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to shift stations." There's a precise moment when the transformation becomes irreversible. Not when you hope, not when you wish, not when you visualize for the 100th time, but when you truly assume, deep in the core of your being, that something is already yours. And I mean already. Not coming, not on its way, not manifesting. Already here, already done, already integrated into the fabric of your existence. When that assumption locks into place, everything shifts. Your entire electromagnetic field recalibrates instantly. This is where most people reveal they haven't actually made the shift yet. They say they believe, they claim they know, but then they're checking their phone every 10 minutes, refreshing their email, scanning their environment for signs that it's working, asking themselves when it will finally arrive. That behavior is the evidence. It's the data showing you're still broadcasting from the frequency of waiting, of absence, of not having. And every time you check, every time you wonder when, you're resetting the entire process back to zero. But when the real shift happens, when you cross that threshold at the collapse point, the wondering stops. Not because you're suppressing it or pretending, but because the question itself becomes absurd. Think about something you already possess right now. Your home, your phone. Do you wake up in the morning anxious about whether your car still exists? Do you spend your day desperately hoping your bed will materialize tonight? The question sounds ridiculous because there's no gap between you and those things. They're already yours. The relationship between you and them is settled, complete, done. If this shifted something inside you, hit the like button. It tells me this message resonated and helps it reach others who are ready to discover these hidden mechanics of reality. That's the exact frequency you need to access for everything you desire. And here's the revelation that trips people up every single time. You cannot fake this state. You cannot perform your way into it. The universe isn't listening to your affirmations or watching your vision board. It's reading the actual electromagnetic signature emanating from the deepest layers of your consciousness, the part of you that knows what's true beyond all pretense and performance. True detachment isn't indifference. It's not convincing yourself you don't care anymore. That's just another form of resistance, another layer of fake energy that the quantum field sees through immediately. Real detachment is knowing so completely, so unshakably, that what you want is already integrated into your reality, that checking for it becomes as unnecessary as checking whether gravity still works. The collapse point activates when your internal state and your desired reality become one seamless thing, when there's no separation, no gap, no waiting period between who you are and what you have. This is where the journey starts getting visceral. Yet type in the comments, "I choose knowing over hoping." The chase itself is the poison. Every single time you catch yourself asking, "Where is it? When will it come? Why hasn't it shown up yet?" You're transmitting a signal of absence so powerful that it overrides everything else. You're essentially telling the quantum field, "This thing is not here, I'm still waiting, I'm still searching." and the field, in its perfect responsiveness, locks you into that exact frequency. It's like trying to grab water with a clenched fist. The tighter you squeeze, the more desperately you grasp, the faster it slips through your fingers. This is where the transformation demands something radical from you. You have to stop looking entirely, not because you've given up or resigned yourself to defeat, but because you've made such a fundamental shift in identity that looking becomes absurd. When something is already in your possession, when it's already integrated into who you are, there's nothing to search for. You don't hunt for what you already have. The collapse point cannot activate while you're still in pursuit mode because pursuit itself is evidence of the gap, proof that you haven't truly crossed the threshold yet. But here's where it gets brutally honest. You make this shift. You feel certain, maybe even powerful for the first time. You've stopped chasing. You're existing in that state of knowing. And then something happens that catches almost everyone off guard. A few hours pass, maybe a day, maybe a week, and that familiar voice creeps back into your mind like smoke under a door. But where is it? It whispers. If this is real, why hasn't anything changed yet? Maybe you were just fooling yourself. Maybe this whole thing is nonsense. This is the test. This is the moment that separates those who successfully navigate the collapse point from those who fall back into the same exhausting cycle they've been trapped in for years. Most people panic here. They interpret doubt as evidence, as proof that it's not working, that they did something wrong, and in that moment of panic, they do the worst possible thing. They start searching again. They start checking for signs, scanning their circumstances for validation, desperately looking for proof that reality is shifting. And the second they do that, they've slipped right back into the frequency of lack, of waiting, of not having. But doubt isn't the enemy. Doubt is just weather passing through your mental landscape. It's a cloud, temporary and meaningless unless you decide to give it power. The real test isn't whether doubt appears. It will appear, I guarantee you that. The test is whether you can observe it without reacting, without breaking, without reverting to old patterns of desperate seeking. Leave a comment, I observe without reacting. Your need to control when and how is the last chain keeping you locked in the old frequency. Most people can shift their internal state for a moment, maybe even hold it for a day, but then their mind starts demanding answers. Okay, but when exactly will this happen? How will it unfold? What's the mechanism? I need to know the timeline. And that need for control, that demand to orchestrate every detail of the process, and is actually proof that you haven't fully surrendered to the collapse point yet. Because here's what waiting really means. Waiting implies absence. Waiting means you're still operating from the paradigm of, it's not here yet, but eventually it will be. That's future tense thinking, and the collapse point exists only in the eternal now. When you exist in the state of already having, time becomes completely irrelevant. There's no timeline to track because from your perspective, it's already done. The physical manifestation is just reality catching up to where you already are internally, like an echo reverberating through dimensions until it finally reaches the frequency you can perceive with your physical senses. At the collapse point, infinite timelines exist simultaneously. In one timeline, it happens tomorrow. In another, next month. In another, it's already happened years ago. Your surrender, your complete release of the need to control which timeline manifests, is what allows the optimal one to crystallize without resistance. The more you try to force a specific path, the more you block the quantum field from arranging circumstances in ways that are actually far superior to what your limited mind could orchestrate. And this brings us to something that sabotages more people than anything else. After you've made the shift internally, after you've crossed into that state of knowing, there's always a gap, a period where nothing seems to be happening in the physical world. The external circumstances look exactly the same. Your bank account hasn't changed, the person hasn't texted, the opportunity hasn't appeared, and this silence, this apparent stillness, is where most people completely lose their minds. They interpret the gap as failure. They think it means the shift didn't work, that they did something wrong, that maybe this whole thing was just wishful thinking. So they panic, revert back to desperate energy, start forcing again. And they sabotage everything right before the breakthrough, right before the collapse point completes its work. But the gap isn't a delay. The gap is alignment. Think about reality as an impossibly complex web of circumstances, people, events, and possibilities all interconnected in ways your conscious mind could never map. When you shift frequency, when you move from one vibrational state to another, that entire web has to recalibrate. It has to restructure itself to match where you now stand. This doesn't happen instantly in the dimension you can see, because there are 10,000 invisible mechanisms working behind the scenes, rearranging pathways, orchestrating synchronicities, moving pieces into position that you have zero awareness of. The silence is where the deepest transformation happens. Put in the comments, "I trust the invisible work." Reality responds to embodiment, not performance. There's a state that exists beyond the chase, beyond the waiting, beyond even the hoping, a hidden dimension where true mastery lives. This is where you learn to operate as if you already possess what you desire, not through some theatrical pretending, but through actual being. You make decisions from that place. You carry yourself from that energy. You speak, move, and exist as the version of yourself who already has it. Not because you're trying to trick the universe, but because you've fundamentally shifted into that identity. But here's the paradox that makes this state so powerful and so difficult to hold. You're doing all of this while simultaneously waiting for nothing. You're not checking the mail. You're not scanning your environment for signs of progress. You're not anxiously monitoring whether it's working. This requires holding two states that seem completely contradictory. You still have the desire, it hasn't disappeared, but you're utterly detached from needing proof, from needing validation, from needing it to arrive on your timeline to feel okay. Most people can't hold this paradox. They collapse into one extreme or the other. Either they fall back into desperate wanting, or they try to kill the desire entirely and convince themselves they don't care anymore. But the collapse point exists precisely in the tension between these two poles. When you can hold desire and detachment simultaneously without breaking, without oscillating between them, something extraordinary happens. The collapse point stops being something you're trying to activate and becomes inevitable, automatic, a natural consequence of who you've become. This is when you transform from someone chasing manifestations into something far more powerful, a clear channel. Think of yourself as a conduit through which reality flows. When you're constantly doubting, checking, desperately seeking proof, you're creating blockages in that channel. Your anxious energy, your need to control how and when things arrive, ask your fear that it's not working. All of it acts like debris clogging a river. The flow wants to reach you. The quantum field wants to deliver. But your resistance creates interference that distorts and delays the signal. When you finally remove all that interference, when you stop blocking the pathway with your desperate energy, reality doesn't just respond. It flows to you. Things don't manifest through struggle anymore. They arrive effortlessly, often in forms better than you originally imagined, through pathways you never could have orchestrated with your limited conscious mind. The collapse point occurs naturally because there's nothing in the way anymore. Right below, I am the clear channel. If you made it all the way here, you're clearly not looking for surface-level content or quick fixes. You're searching for something real, something that actually transforms how you experience reality. And that's exactly what this channel is about. Going into territories most people won't touch, revealing the hidden mechanics that most will never discover. If this resonated with you, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started. There's so much more to explore together, layers beneath layers of how consciousness and reality actually operate. Every video on this channel is built for people like you, people who aren't satisfied with shallow answers, who want to see what's really happening behind the curtain. And look, if this shifted something inside you, if you felt that click of recognition while watching, hit the like button. It tells me this message landed, and it helps this reach others who are ready for it. I see people who are searching for exactly what you just discovered. Leave a comment right now and write, "This was meant for me." I read every single one, and it's powerful to see who's walking this path from all corners of the world. There's a video right here that goes even deeper into what happens after you cross the collapse point, how reality starts rearranging itself in ways that seem almost impossible. Click it and continue this journey with me. Let's keep going.